High above the verdant valleys of the Ariege Pyrenees, in the very corner of France where it snuggles up to the borders of Spain and Andorra, a man sat waiting at the edge of a small clearing, his long limbs folded uncomfortably, his breath swirling in white clouds around the brilliantly coloured foliage that concealed him. To his right, rising out of the mist far below, a range of magnificent peaks serrated the morning sky, Montvallier king of them all, snow-capped and glistening. The vista, which had tempted many a visitor to Fogas, was not enough to seduce this man. Indifferent to the best that the region had to offer, he was concentrating solely on the surrounding woods.
Now living in the Yorkshire Dales, Buena Vista Book Club has brought Julia and her husband Mark back to the very spot their French adventure began, and the much-loved Chronicles of Fogas first came to life.
These are my 3 books. I still can't believe that there are 3 in print with the 4th one coming, and they are the product of living in an area that's absolutely amazing to live in, which we kind of stumbled upon. And we lived in the Ariege for 6 years. We're in the French Pyrenees, nestled down in the corner where it meets Spain and Andorra. It's really remote. I mean, so many people talk about real France or rural France. This is really, really different France. And it's an area that's made up of valleys that interlock, of steep mountains, of rivers, of greenery, and of people who've been here for so long. Families that can trace their ancestry right back to Napoleon. And that, I think, really comes across when you live here. And we came up the valley it would have been a March day. So the sun was just about over the tops, but as you come up the gorge, you're in shadow. And you come round the bend and suddenly there's a spotlight on this building, which is just so welcoming. And as soon as we saw it, we didn't even know it was for sale. It was just, wow, that building is absolutely amazing. And 4 months later, we were brought here to view it, and we didn't even know in that initial viewing period that it was for sale. And this was probably the 4th property that we'd come along to view, and we walked into this room. There was something about the room, the space, the light, and you could hear the river in the background, and it just totally won me over. And from then on, it became home, work, the books that I write. This is where it started. And so many times I'd be working in here, running the auberge with my husband, and things would happen that I knew were going to be part of a book later on. We arrived totally intending to just run the auberge as bed and breakfast, and we'd been here about probably 2 or 3 weeks, and the mayor landed down and said that he wanted the restaurant open, and we tried to explain that that wasn't what we wanted to do, and the reaction was, well, why have you bought an auberge? You must be a chef, because the French are very, very focused on what they do from an early age. And if you're a chef when you leave school, you will be a chef when you're 60 and you retire. For them to understand that Mark was an engineer and that I was a teacher, it just didn't compute. And so it was like, you must open the restaurant. So I spent 3 months on the internet while we were closed, learning how to cook, thanks to Julia Smith and Jamie Oliver, and just practicing in the evenings on my poor husband, and then we were ready to go come April. But it wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy. And probably the first 50 meals I served, I was terrified because we were serving to French people. With this book, it had to be the starting point because it is the auberge, and the auberge was the starting point for me. And the original idea was that each book would take part of the commune, l'auberge, the épicerie, the post office, the town hall, and that each book would be centred around these focal points of the community. So the first one was l'auberge, and I really used the British couple as a tool to come into the community from outside so that you could get that distant perspective of this community. When you start with a novel, you've got this massive blank canvas that you can fill with people, and I think for me what came first, it wasn't the people, it was the geography. That was the first character in my head. And this commune, like a few other communes, is divided over 3 different villages and lots of hamlets that are separated across 2 valleys. And that for me is something that defines the people who live here, how they live, their interactions with each other. And that geography was very important. And you expand it beyond that and you look at the geography of the Pyrenees with the valleys that go east-west or north-south, and depending on which way your valley goes determines how much light you get at certain times of the year and whether or not that valley stays populated. And that to me is absolutely fundamental for the books, that aspect of geography is a character.